You have a lot of fans, of course, on Facebook and everywhere else, and we asked some of our Facebook followers if they had questions for you. And some of them had to do with the roles that you've played. Some people wrote about your role in the Rings series, the Lord of the Rings series, and talked about your character as one who had gone from being sort of outsider to being alliance builder in chief. And wondering if you had a message there for people who are social change makers about making alliances.
I mean, he certainly is. When you brought up that, I thought about an article that appeared, I think it was in Time magazine. It was a review. It's a little off the, I'll be quick about it, but when the second part came out, The Two Towers, I think it was Richard Corliss, if I'm wrong, sorry. But the person who wrote the review of that movie, and you have to remember this is 2002, in the heat of the, you know, the almost, I wouldn't say joyful, but yeah, let's go, kind of almost like a sporting thing.
Vengeful.
We're gonna, you know, we're gonna do something about this, and all this nonsense that was coming out in the fall of 2002. But the review that came out in December of 2002, when the plan to invade Iraq was obviously well underway and all systems go, talked about the character played by Christopher Lee, who recently passed away, a fine actor, playing Saruman, who sends these hordes against Helm's Deep, you know, this fortress at night in the rain, and it's a huge battle, all these orcs and, you know, baddies, and he equated him. He said, well, not only is the resemblance striking, but something else. I don't know, that it's clearly Osama bin Laden, and that that my character and the alliance was very much the coalition of the willing. And I mean, I was like, and I wrote them, and I was like, are you kidding me? I mean, this is an important magazine, and it's a magazine that in some sense represents, for better or for worse, the United States culturally around the world. Or it was.
Heaven forbid.
It's on every newsstand around the world. It's like, how can you guys in good conscience say such a lot of crap, you know? But that's, anyway.
We haven't talked about one of the stories that we're following a lot on this program, which has to do with the effort to end the prison system as we know it. You have some amazing paintings. We've talked about photography, films. You're also a musician. I hope that we get to play some of your incredible work. But in here there's a poem, I mean, a painting going back a ways that you did in 1999, having to do with isolation. Can you describe that one for us?
You want to see it, or
I'll get that off there.
Okay.
They'll come in closer in a bit, probably.
The painting's called Isolation and Its Effects on Colored Perception with the Passing of Time. It's a long title. For short, Isolation.
So you were studying the effects of isolation on color perception back in 1999?
Well, I was thinking about it, yeah. And I'm trying to, you know, it's one reason to write things down and take photographs also, is to record, but it's so that, as much as like a photo album, you know, a poem works the same way for me. I've never been very good at keeping a diary. I wish I were good at it, but my way of doing it is this, you know, or poems. And I can also movies, you know, when I see a movie that I've done years ago, I think more about the people that I was with and the place, and also what was going on in the world at the time.
So you finally, I'm just curious about your outlook. I mean, anyone that observes what's going on as closely as you do, and as we do, gets both the good and the bad in equal measure. I always talk about this sort of miracle of good. Given how awful everything is, it's kind of amazing that anyone's nice to anyone else at all.
I agree. It's amazing anybody brushes their teeth or takes a shower.
But I think of the road, and I think of the sort of the picture that Cormac McCarthy and then the movie conjured up of, you know, armed gangs pillaging for food and crops having failed. Is that your vision of the future? You think that's where we're going?
It's, if you don't consider it as a very real possibility, you're lying to yourself. Yeah. You know, in the same way that people have been lying to themselves for years about climate change, you know. I mean, it's a real problem. And the proliferation of nuclear weapons is not something that's discussed at all these days. It's amazing. I mean, they're still there. There's more of them, you know. It can't be said that Israel has nuclear weapons. It can't be talked about. It can't be said that we have more and newer and better, and that, you know, nuclear power plants around the world, including in this country, are deteriorating, are not safe. That there are other ways. There are clearly other ways to get energy. You know, it's not necessary. It's a racket. You know.
How do we get here? Where are we exactly, and how do we get how do we move forward? All the themes of this program. I want to thank you so much for being on.
People need to take matters into their own hands, not just when things are bad. That's why things get bad. You know, we talk about Black Lives Matter, or we talk about the voices of a people's history in the United States, or a book like Twilight of Empire. You know, you're talking about a reaction to an already screwed up situation. And what you need to do is make a racket every day. Not just when it gets bad. It's not like fix this broken thing. No, let's avoid it becoming broken.
I want you to shout out to some of our audience members. We're very proud to be distributed on Telesur, the Latin American network.
South America.
And we have a big audience in one of your home countries, Argentina. Now, I know you follow the soccer closely, the football.
I do.
Any message to our Argentinian viewers?
In Spanish?
Sure.
Bueno, un cariñoso saludo a todos los hermanos y las hermanas de Sudamérica, especialmente a los argentinos y especialmente a los cuervos. Aguante Ciclón, viva San Lorenzo.
And we should just clarify, you grew up, you were born in Manhattan, then you spent a lot of time in Buenos Aires.
Yeah, I was born in Manhattan, and as an infant, my parents moved down there, and I was, first decade of my life, I basically came back here when they split up when I was 11.
There you go. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your work for Percival Press. We'll put more information about Percival Press, all of its books, as well as the People's History series and more at our website.
Es Ciclón, es Ciclón, es Ciclón, es Ciclón.
Viggo Mortensen. Thank you. Primary season is in its prime and feels familiar in almost every respect. 8 years on, it's the same candidate, the same point of contention. Is Hillary Clinton warm enough? Now, I'm not debating that this is sexist stuff, or that focus on her warmth, her style, her smile. Come on, why do women always have to be warm anyway? Was Lincoln warm? Was Eisenhower? It's just another double standard. The partisan press corps is packed with macho creeps. This much I agree. But when it comes to Clinton, it's not the warmth, it's the wars I'm worried about. I've actually read her books, both of them. And I don't think she's ever seen a bombing mission she didn't approve, going back to the 1990s, when the whole insidious humanitarian war idea took root. Bernie Sanders voted for NATO's bombing of Yugoslavia too, so he should score no points from peaceniks on that account. Still, it really is pretty rich for Hillary Clinton to be out there posing as the great anti-gun and anti-violence crusader when you think of how that humanitarian war idea has played out. Killing people to save people, bringing democracy at the end of a rocket, backing rebels we know next to nothing about. It's been almost unending intervention and war since the Clintons let that particular genie out of the bottle. It was the wars on Yugoslavia that prepared the political ground for intervention in Iraq, Libya, Syria, you name it. And every one of those has led to a bloodbath and, as of now, a dangerous failed state. Clinton's coming on strong against the gun lobby and the NRA, but U.S. arms sales never did better than when she was Secretary of State. She approved what was, at that time, the largest ever U.S. arms sale to scary Saudi Arabia, even as she acknowledged in WikiLeaked cables that that place was the world's leading source of support for Sunni terrorist groups. Warmth, as far as I'm concerned, Clinton's shown way too much of it to wars and warmongers. And if you're really worried about machismo, ask the women of those failed states. From the Taliban to ISIS, they've been the first to pay the price. This program's also available as a podcast. Check it out. And you can write to me, Laura at lauraflanders.com.